Hello. We have an Ozeki Reborn, an Abi Resurgent, and a sexy sumo recap of the March Basho. So throw.
Hakuho!
Throw the salt, get in the ring. Welcome to the Dohyo.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Dohyo here on Mr. J-Wag's channel. We're going to be talking about the March Basho and all the exciting things that happened there. But first, sumo announcements. First sumo announcement, I'm going to be joining the boys of Grand Sumo Breakdown for their April Fool's episode. They're having a lot of fun. They're getting a lot of guests to come on in and do fun voices for this very completely fake sumo basho they're doing. They've done that before, but this one's like much faker than the not so basho. So check that out when it comes out. And also later in the spring, we're going to be doing another bonus episode based on the Shadow of Hakuho. For those of you who were fans of the Indoor Voices, our hastily rehearsed song cover show, we are still doing those. We're not listing them on the channel because it messes up with the algorithm, but they are available at the address below, and we're going to link those below as well. So if you want to check out some of the fun, hastily rehearsed songs, come on by. We'd love to have you. And thank you very much to everyone who watched the sumo quick strikes that I put up during the Basho. I don't normally do stuff during the Basho because it takes sort of a lot of stuff for me to get everything set up in this apartment. So I wanted to do something that was a little bit quicker, sort of just me sort of like shouting at the camera and being able to get something up in one day. But I'm not going to be promoting those as much, so if you'd like to see what I think mid-Basho, hit that subscribe button and you will be notified whenever I come up with more sumo, well, I mean, not brilliance, but stuff. Sumo announcements. All right, the March Basho happened. Have some thoughts. First of all, nailed it. Terunofuji won the Yusho with a 12-win Yusho. That was the prediction. Terunofuji stepped up and did it. He is Ozeki again. We now have 4 Ozeki going into May. We also have 1 fewer Yokozuna than we had before. The other big news, of course, in the Basho was the retirement of Yokozuna Kakuryu. We'll be talking about that in its own episode, but for right now, we'd just like to say to Kakuryu, thank you so much for all of the memories, and we hope you have an incredible career as an Oyakata. Now, in addition to Terunofuji, we have 2 gentlemen who might be on their way to an Ozeki run. Daisho and Takayasu. Now, Daisho was our champion from the last tournament, and we were thinking maybe this would be a tournament he makes that Ozeki push. Now, clearly the JSA did not agree with me on this because they kept him at Komusubi. Now, what I said in the preview episode was that was going to work especially hard against Daisho because it meant he was going to have to face the Yokozuna early. That ended up happening. He ended up losing to Hakuho. It's like Hakuho just like reached out his long arm and is just like, I'm just going to show up to mess with your Ozeki run. So, Daisho ended up getting an 8-7, still got the Kachikoshi, so he's still technically on the run, but an 8-7 probably isn't going to get him up to Sekiwake. Takayasu, another former Ozeki, of course not as extreme a situation as Terunofuji. But Takayasu in the lead after 10 days and then lost 4 of his last 5. Lost 4 of his 5 losses came against Maegashira. Now, I'm not the kind of person who's going to be like, he's a choker. He just doesn't have the inner fortitude. He might have been hurt. I didn't see anything with these eyes. I didn't read anything about him being hurt. We will just have to sort of figure out in hindsight what happened. But yeah, I was disappointed in that. Takayasu has had a bunch of Kachikoshi in a row, but I think he and Daisho are both in the spot where unless one of them, 2 of them, pulls off like a Zensho Yusho in the next tournament, they're probably 2 tournaments, 2 really solid tournaments, and probably a June Yusho each away from Ozeki. Now, I'm not saying they couldn't come up with like a 14-1 or a Zensho Yusho, it's just that neither of these guys has ever done that before. So it would take an unprecedented Basho from either of them to go from where they are in one Basho to Ozeki. But this could set up an amazing September. Now time for everyone's favorite part of the recap, because J-Wags was wrong.
J-Wax was wrong.
First thing I was wrong about, I said that there was only going to be 1 Sanyaku member who got Make Koshi, and I was correct. I was just wrong about the person it was. I thought it was going to be Mitake Yumi. It ended up being Shodai. And of course, we had a lot of Sanyaku members sort of pushing that Make Koshi, Kachikoshi thing to the last day. I thought there were going to be a lot of 9 and 6s. There were a lot of 7 and 8s and 8 and 7s. I thought there would be a lot of wrath from the Sanyaku onto the sort of Joy and top Maegashira ranks, and I thought most of the wrath was going to fall on everyone but Onosho. I thought Onosho was going to be able to get Kachikoshi and maybe bump into the Sanyaku. No, Onosho had another bad tournament up in the Joy. At this point, I'm wondering if Onosho was what we would call in baseball a quadruple A player. Someone who is good enough to be better than the people who are in the lower part of the division, but who can't quite hang with the upper part of the division. So maybe he's just going to be bouncing up and down between the Joy and the mid-Maegashira ranks for a while, until he either finds a new gear or gets hurt again. And I was very happily wrong about Taka Keisho. He was coming off some injuries. He didn't have a whole lot of training before the tournament. I thought he was going to go 8 and out once he cleared Kataban. He stayed in all 15 days and was in contention for the Yusho on the very last day. Couldn't quite pull it out, but it was a real good tournament for him. He finished 10-5 and still might be able to make Yokozuna by the end of the year. But the big wrong I had was my Sumo 3-way parlay. I said that all three of the Kotos, Koto Nawaka, Koto Shoho, and Koto Wiko were all going to get Kachikoshi. One of them got Kachikoshi. It was Koto Wako way down in the bottom of the Maegashira ranks. The other two did not do very well. Koto Shoho ended up going Kyujo after the third day. Koto Shoho has looked very bad for the last two tournaments. I was hoping he was going to make Sanyaku this year. He's going to be dropping into Juryo. Hopefully whatever is wrong can be fixed, because it feels like he is very much in his head right now. Hopefully he can straighten himself out, get back to his brand of sumo, or at least to a brand of winning sumo. And of course, if it's a recap, there's going to be some Uncle Sumo's attaboys. Starting off the attaboys this March, Aoyama. Now, Aoyama's a guy, he's been around sort of forever, and once a year he gets double-digit wins and contends for a Yusho. But Aoyama looked great, got 11-5, earned the June Yusho. Good on ya, attaboy. Double attaboy for Wakataka Kage and Meisei, two guys in the high Maegashira Joy-Jin. I thought both of them were going to have very difficult tournaments and they were going to get kind of beat up. Both of them finished 10-5, which means they're one step closer to the Sanyaku. One more good tournament should be enough to do that, and I thought these were two guys who were going to make their first Sanyaku appearances, unlike Koto Shoho. But these two guys might do it. And another special double attaboy to the Iwasaki brothers, Tobizaru and Hideno Umi. They both got 10-5, and this means Tobizaru is going to be back up in the Joy. Hopefully he handles it a little bit better this time, but I'm thinking Tobizaru can do it. Tobizaru is a very interesting wrestler to me because he is a very small guy with very small limbs, but because he has a different sort of physique than a lot of other wrestlers, I think he's going to be able to be a more technique-based wrestler as opposed to, say, a gimmick-based wrestler. He's sort of like a sumo mullet. He's sort of Enho on top, Koto Shogiku on the bottom. And the heavy base he's got prevents him from being sort of pushed aside as one would do to, say, Enho. He's got an extra sort of 50 pounds of junk in the trunk that means when you hit him, he's sort of like a weeble wobble and can keep that center of gravity. And he's shown himself to do very well against certain people on the higher ranks. Tobizaru's got great energy. Hopefully he can stay up in the Joy and play spoiler a little bit. Attaboy. And not necessarily an attaboy, but just sort of a reach out of some love to Hoshoryu. Quick sidebar. Now, as you know, Maegashira Hoshoryu is the nephew of the great Yokozuna Asashoryu. And Asashoryu is not very withholding in his opinion. I don't know if any of you were watching on day 15 and checking out Twitter, but Asashoryu went a little bit nuts on his nephew. I do not speak Japanese, and so I had to sort of Google translate things through. If you speak Japanese and know what these tweets actually say, don't tell me, because these translations are perfect. But instead of necessarily giving an attaboy to Hoshoryu, just like, hey, just know that you are loved and you are enough, and if you need help, let us know. Now, I think Hoshoryu could have a big future in sumo. Right now, he's not quite showing all of it. I think he needs to gain a bit of weight, much like Kakuryu did. He showed up very, very light at around 290, where Hoshoryu is now. And by the time Kakuryu retired, he was around 340, 350. If Hoshoryu can get another 30, 40 pounds of muscle, especially sort of in the lower body and legs, I think he's going to have a lot more options to power his opponents, as opposed to sort of doing what he's doing right now, which is sort of the tall man's Enho. Alright, so we didn't get our big reckoning. I was thinking we were going to get at least 15 total matches out of the Yokozuna. We ended up getting 2. Now, I just think going forward, I personally am going to assume the following 3 things until I am proven wrong. Number 1, Terunofuji is fine. Like, we look at the knee braces, we remember what he keeps saying about like how hard it was for him to come back up, but he's been up now for 12 Basho. 2 years, basically. And in that time, he's only gone Kyujo once. In a tournament, he ended up getting Kachi Koshien. And if you look at the past 12 Basho, look at people like Takayasu or Taka Keisho. They've missed 4 tournaments in that time. Injury will always be a part of sumo. Every single wrestler walking into the ring is going to be an injury risk. So, for now, I'm just going to treat Terunofuji as though he is in working condition until he proves me wrong. And furthermore, I will say that Terunofuji, as long as he is healthy, will be the alpha dog in sumo. Number 2, Asanoyama is not a credible Yokozuna threat right now. Now Asanoyama has a lot going for him. He's a great wrestler, he has great fundamentals, he has great size, he's the right age for it, but he just doesn't seem to have that extra gear that gets him from a 10 to 11 win Rikishi to a 12 to 13 win Rikishi that will start winning championships. Now, I know we've talked about this before, but Asanoyama has only won 1 tournament. He did not face a full Sanyaku slate in that tournament. And in that tournament, he had a little help from the Shimpan in a very key match against Tochinoshin. He's never had 13 wins at any level. And if you look since he's made Ozeki, if he's facing a Sanyaku slate in the last week, he loses 2 out of his last 3 every tournament. The one tournament where he didn't, he was facing Maegashira in the last 3 days because no one was around. This is, of course, the joy of the current injury-riddled Banzuke. So, even though Asanoyama's only gone Kyujo in 1 tournament over the past 2 years, or I think 1 tournament ever, he's had this weak Banzuke, he's still never been able to win 13 wins or get another Yusho. And now, Terunofuji's back, kicking butt, taking names, and Asanoyama's never beaten him. Now, Asanoyama might very well be our next Yokozuna, but he's going to have to break a lot of trends to prove me wrong. And finally, both of our Yokozuna are retired. It's just that one of them hasn't figured it out yet. Until I'm proven wrong, I'm moving forward with the assumption that Hakuho is never going to finish another 15-day tournament. He just turned 36, which is the oldest modern Yokozuna. He's getting over COVID. We've talked about this before. This is the longest layoff he's ever had. And as we all know, objects in motion tend to stay in motion, while objects at rest tend to stay at rest. You can talk to me about that. I got my COVID-19 right here. There will be no reckoning. We are, in fact, already in the post-Hakuho era. It hurts me to say it. I really love Hakuho. I think he's the greatest, and I'd really love nothing more than him to come out and just kick butt one more time and lift the cup to a full cheering crowd. I'd love for him to be able to walk up in the Olympics like as a full Yokozuna, but he's not what he once was. It's like Rocky Balboa said in Creed. He was the greatest. But time is undefeated. So we'll see how things shake out. We'll see if I'm completely wrong, which, as you know, I often am. But I, for one, welcome our new overlords, the group of the Solid Bs. Thank you all so much for tuning in here on the Dohyo. As I said before, I've got 2 Shadow of Hakuho episodes in the can. They have been edited. We're going to be popping those out a little bit later. And of course, we have a Kakuryu tribute that will be coming up very soon as well. Everyone stay safe, stay strong, stay healthy, and I will see you next time on the Dohyo.